I'm back from racing across Andes, an 800km gravel ultra endurance race in the La Araucanía region of Chile. In this video, I'm going to run you through the bike and setup that I used and let you know what worked and what didn't. As you can see, this is not Chile, we're here back in dreary England, and I've unpacked the bike, I haven't even cleaned it yet, and the bike is still wearing plenty of Andean dust. If you like what you're seeing on this channel and want to see more tech-related content, please hit subscribe. So at the heart of this is a 9er RLT9 RDO carbon frame set. It's about 5 years old, but when the bike was released it was quite forward-thinking, with its generous 50mm tyre clearance and wealth of mounting points. Now, gravel's a broad church, and this is more on the racy end of the spectrum, but it's reasonably comfortable and I've used it for multiple bikepacking trips and races in the past. It's a full custom build, and the drivetrain that I'm running is Campagnolo Ekar. Ekar is a 13-speed group set, and I particularly like the lever ergonomics and the exceptional braking. I'm running a 38-tooth chainring and a 10-to-44-tooth cassette, and I found I was quite undergeared. More modern gravel group sets top out at 48-50 or even 52 teeth on the cassette, so 44 isn't quite as generous, but it worked and I got through it. Campagnolo have since released Ekar GT last year, which is a more adventure ready group set with a more generous 48 tooth cassette and corresponding rear mech, but I can't run that bigger cassette with this rear mech. I'd have to change to an Ekar GT one, which I might do in the future. As for wheels and tyres, I'm running a Fulcrum Rapid Red 500 wheel set. This is a relatively cheap and cheerful wheel set, but it's proven very reliable and comfortable. And I'm running Schwalbe G1 RS Pro tyres. I really rate these tyres. They're hardpack oriented and they've got a very striking tread design, and I thought, seeing as the race was going to be mainly hardpack, they'd be the ideal choice. Unfortunately, on day one, I suffered a sidewall puncture. But I'm not going to lay the blame on the Schwalbes because I think this could have happened to any tyre. There were so many riders being caught out by punctures, and the terrain there was unlike anything I've ever ridden before. As for the contact points, I've got an Eastern EC70 SLX carbon handlebar in a relatively narrow 40cm width. That's paired with a 9er 100mm stem, a carbon Roval Terra seat post, which is really comfortable and takes some of the sting out, and my favoured fabric scoop saddle. Finally, I'm running some fairly thick Ergon BT gravel bar tape. I installed this earlier this year, just before riding the Traversée du Massif Vosgien bikepacking route with some friends, and I haven't found it all that comfortable, but I thought, seeing as I'm going to wear through some bar tape during such a long race, I thought I'd keep it on, but I'll be switching back to my Silka Nastro Casino bar tape after this. As for accessories, I'm running my tried and tested Garmin Edge 1040 Solar. I particularly like its long battery life, and the mapping is very clear on it too. I found I would get about 2 days worth of battery life on it, which was great, and it charges quickly too via USB-C. As for lighting, it's all exposure. I'm running the brand's latest Max-D Mark 17 front light, and then I've got a React rear light and a backup front light as well. This front light is particularly important because before this I also had a Max-D, but on their latest generation lights, exposure have now switched to USB-C, and that makes my life much easier because I haven't got to carry around a separate charger to charge the light, and because it's USB-C, exposure claims it charges 3 times as faster compared to its predecessor. Now, moving on to the bags, I'm running a complete Tailfin setup. For me, it's the gold standard when it comes to bikepacking equipment. At the back, I'm running a CargoPack, which when it was released originally was called the AeroPack Cargo. So this is an update to the original AeroPack, only it comes with a revised closure system and cargo pockets for extra storage. I'm then running a long top tube pack paired with a frame bag, and then up front I'm running two 5-litre fork packs, and they were a very last minute addition. The plan was to originally run Tailfin's bar cage bag system, which I've used in the past in some of my races and bikepacking trips. I tend to like storing my sleeping gear at the front on this system, but because these bars are narrower at 40 centimetres, I just didn't have the space, and I figured the fork packs would be better instead. Before I go on to what's in the bags, I'm just going to run you through some of the kit I'm wearing. I wore this POC Kaitao helmet on the race, and it's excellent for blending ventilation, safety and nice aesthetics really well. I'm wearing these Lake MX239 shoes. This is the first time that I've used them for such an extended race. I've typically used my City Dust MTBs, but let's just say they're rather worn now, and I have got a second pair, but I didn't have the time to properly bed them in, so I gambled on these Lakes instead, and they're really good. They didn't cause me any troubles at all. I wore this very jersey. This is an Ornot grid one, and it's excellent because it goes down to about 10 degrees on its own, but you can use it in slightly warmer temperatures up to about 17, 18 as well. As for bib shorts, I rotated between two. I had a pair of Rafa Explore cargos, which were excellent. In the fork pack, I stored a spare pair of Assos Mill GTC Kia Spanzas, my favourite cargo bibs, and I would rotate between the two. Now let's go into what's in the bags. In the cargo pack, I stored my sleeping system and my layers. First of all, this is my Patagonia Micro Puff down jacket. I use it whenever I go bikepacking or racing, and it's excellent. I would never not carry a down jacket. Next, I've got a 7 mesh Guardian pair of waterproof trousers. There's a jacket in the fork packs, which I'm currently testing, and I really get on well with these because they're really lightweight. They pack down really small. Because the weather was really hot during the race, I found I didn't need to use this at all. Although the forecast was for rain on the Thursday, so I had it just in case, but that never really materialised, so in reality I could have done without it. Next, I've got a water purifier. This was a very last minute addition, but because of how remote the race was and how hot the temperatures were forecast to be, I didn't want to be without the option for water. Next, I've got a BioLite Ranger headlight. This is really good for setting up camp or just as a general headlight. The last thing in this pack that isn't my sleeping system is this pack of spares. So in here, I've got a chain tool, quick link pliers, spare cleats, spare quick link for the chain. I've even packed a spare gear cable just in case because Campagnolo is quite uncommon. And I've also got a spare derailleur hanger, 2 sets of brake pads as well. Now, moving on to the sleeping system. Because of the temperatures and the fact that the race was quite remote, I chose to carry a tent rather than a bivvy. So in here, I've got a Big Agnes Fly Creek HVU01 bikepacking tent. It's really good. I've used it on quite a few trips now. It comes in at just over a kilogram and it's easy to set up and put away. To protect my investment, I've also got a footprint. Next, I've got a Sea to Summit Etherlite XT sleeping mat and a lightweight Sea to Summit sleeping bag. The sleeping system, surprisingly, I didn't need to use at all. On most ultra endurance races, I'd normally tend to have a mixture of camping and hotels, but on this one, there were 3 checkpoints that we needed to visit, and it just so happened that on the first checkpoint, I got there on the first day, so I chose to sleep there. On the second day, I got to a lodge which the organisers had arranged, and again there was the option of sleeping. And then for the next 2 nights, I booked hotels. I could have camped on the final night because I didn't have much to go on the last day, but I just didn't see the point of getting everything dirty for one night, so I didn't end up using any of this. And as you can see, this is probably a good 2-3 kilograms or so of kit that I carried around needlessly. In the long top tube pack, this was where I stored my food. It's been quite depleted now. I also stored a bottle of hand sanitizer here, which is always very useful on trips. as well as a small bottle of degreaser, which I used when I cleaned the chain and then just chucked it. In the frame bag is where I mainly store my electronics and any spares that I'd need quickly to sort the problem out. So first of all, my brevet card, which I needed to stamp at the checkpoints. I've then got a set of Lecole Arc leg warmers, which I never needed to use, but useful to have just in case, and they pack down really small. Next, my chargers. So I've got this Anker charger with 2 USB slots and a USB-A slot, 1 USB-C charger, an Anker 30 watt battery pack, which will charge my phone twice. I've got this big bulky adapter, which I needed because South America used different plugs. Now, if I was in South America for longer, I would have bought a smaller adapter, but I thought it's just the one race, I'm going to carry this round. I've got a micro USB cable, which is to charge the front light. At some point I'm going to buy a front light with USB-C rather than this one. And I've got a Silca tie torque and T-ratchet set, which is basically my Allen key and torque wrench. I've also got a multi-tool. This is a Silca Venti, which has most functions that I'd need. A Pedro's tyre lever, the only tyre lever you should use in my opinion. And finally, 2 pumps. A Silca Gravelero mini pump, but I also carried a Silca Electrico electric pump. I would always use the electric pump first to pump up a tyre, but because it may run out of charge or break, that's why I also carry a mini pump. And a bloody good job I did, because this was one of the casualties of the race. On day 1, this packed up, and so I had to resort to using a mini pump when I punctured. Finally, in this pack, I've got some odds and sods such as toiletries and tablets. I've got my toothbrush and toothpaste, paracetamol, bacon strips, a WTB plug kit, which didn't come in very useful when I punctured the sidewall because the bacon strips were too small. Luckily, another rider helped me out who had some bigger bacon strips. And then in terms of tablets, other than the paracetamol, I carry naproxen and lansoprazole. Naproxen is my tablet of choice for whenever I get aches and pains, for example in my knee, which I've had in the past. It's a really strong muscle relaxant, but you also need to take lansoprazole 30 minutes before it, because it's a stomach liner tablet. Moving on to the fork packs finally. In this first one is mainly clothes, so I had a spare set of socks, I then wore another set and alternated between them. The aforementioned bib shorts, Patagonia tech tee for when I was off the bike, 7 mesh Guardian waterproof jacket, which I never used, and an Apodura visibility vest. This Rafa Ghost Air jersey, the brand's new lightweight summer short sleeve jersey for really hot weather, which I used as well. The other side, on my second fork pack, I stored my Sony a6700 camera in here right at the top for easy access. I then had a set of specialised Polartec winter gloves, which was on the recommended list of things to take, but I never used them. I then had a spare base layer, an Attica race short sleeve jersey, so this was for when it wasn't quite as hot, where I then used the Rafa one, and I found I spent an equal amount of time in both. A Sea to Summit pillow for my sleeping system, I couldn't quite fit it all in there. Pair of boxers, one in a tube, and then my first aid kit. And then in the small compartment of my frame bag, finally, I carried a wallet with cash and my cards, 4 spare AAA batteries for the tracker that was attached to my cargo pack, a spare TPU in a tube and my passport. So all in all, this setup got me round the 800-kilometre course, and I think I got it mostly right. Okay, I didn't use the sleeping gear or my waterproofs, but I didn't know that I'd be sleeping in a bed every night, and the waterproofs are always good to have because you can never predict the weather. As for the bike and components, I was fairly happy with the setup. As I said, I'd have liked an easier gear. It was a shame that I punctured that front tyre on the first day, but I think it would have happened to any tyre and it was just bad luck. I'll be changing the bar tape too, replacing the rear brake pads because they're worn, and giving everything a thoroughly good clean. So that's the setup that I used to successfully get me round across Andes. I hope you found that interesting, and please do like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed it.